Money. It can be your best friend or your worst enemy. It promises freedom, but it often turns into shackles. Just ask yourself, why are so many people having millions in their accounts still unhappy? And why do some people, living modestly, radiate peace and contentment? What do they know that most people don't? Imagine a life where you no longer panic about money. No fears of an economic crisis. No pressure from debt or an empty bank account. The Stoics taught that true financial freedom is not about how much money you have, but about how you perceive it. And today I'm going to share with you 5 simple lessons that will make you look at money in a completely different way. Lesson 1. Control your desires. He is rich who is content with little. Epictetus. This thought of Epictetus remains relevant even after thousands of years. In today's world, where advertising, social media, and the environment constantly make us want more, the idea of being content with little can seem almost revolutionary. But this, according to the Stoics, is where true freedom lies. The Stoics believe that our happiness does not depend on what we have, but on our attitude towards it. And very often the source of our dissatisfaction is not external circumstances, but excessive desires. Think of situations when you sincerely wanted something: a new car, the latest phone model, or designer clothes. You convinced yourself that it would make you happier, add status, or solve a problem. But what happened after the purchase? The joy lasted for a few days or maybe weeks, and then you started craving something else. This is a vicious circle that the Stoics called slavery of desire. Epictetus emphasized that wealth is not in the number of things we have, but in the ability to be satisfied with what we already have. After all, even if you have all the gold in the world, but you want even more, you will still feel poor. Let's think about today's reality. For example, a new iPhone comes out. You watch an advertisement showing how this phone takes amazing photos and has unique features, and you start to feel the urge to buy it. But do you really need this phone if your current one is working just fine? This desire is most likely not dictated by real needs, but by the desire to conform to trends or to gain the approval of others. People often want new things not because they really need them, but because they want to feel on par. Another example is buying clothes. You go into a store just to look around and suddenly find something you absolutely have to have. But a few days later, this purchase no longer seems so important to you. Such impulsive desires devastate not only your wallet, but also your psyche. Instead of enjoying peace and tranquility, we are constantly chasing something new. How Stoicism helps to control desires. The Stoics offered a simple but profound approach to learn to distinguish between the desires that are really important and those imposed by society or our emotions. What they advised: simplify your life. Ask yourself questions. What do I really need to be happy? The answer is usually much simpler than we think. Controlling emotions. Desires often arise from an emotional impulse. Learn to calm your emotions before making a decision. How can you apply this lesson to your everyday life? Make a shopping list. Every time you want to buy something, put it on the list and wait a few days. If after a week you still feel like you really need it, then consider buying it. Ask yourself, oh, will this thing really improve my life? Oh, will this purchase help me achieve my long-term goals? Or do I want it because of societal or advertising pressure? Spend time in gratitude. Take 5 minutes every day to think about what you already have. This helps you to appreciate your life and strive for less. Practice periodic detoxification. Make it a habit to analyze your belongings every few months and get rid of what you don't use. This will free up space in your life and teach you to value only the essentials. Controlling desires is not about denying yourself everything. It's about living consciously and realizing that true happiness is not in the number of things, but in the ability to be satisfied with what you have. If you start asking yourself the right questions and managing your desires, you will notice how your financial situation and overall sense of life changes. The Stoics knew that inner peace is more important than any wealth. Lesson 2. Recognize what is in your power. There are things that are in our power, and there are things that are out of our power. This simple truth of Epictetus is the basis of Stoicism and is of great importance when it comes to money. Imagine how much easier your life would be if you stopped worrying about what you can't change and focused on what you can. This is what the Stoics taught, to separate the controllable from the uncontrollable. When it comes to finance, this teaching becomes extremely relevant. We cannot control the state of the economy, inflation, or market fluctuations. None of us can prevent a recession or influence gasoline prices. But what always remains in our power is our reaction to these circumstances. We control our spending, our savings, our investment decisions, and how we structure our financial strategy. Think about how much stress people experience because of things they cannot influence. An economic crisis is predicted, people panic. The currency falls, there is a fear of losing savings. However, worry and panic do not solve anything. The Stoics emphasized that worrying about things that are beyond your control is a waste of energy. Instead, it is better to focus on what you can do. For example, inflation may increase prices, but isn't it better to think about how to optimize your budget? You can't prevent a crisis, but you can create a financial cushion that will get you through the hard times. Or imagine that you lost your job. Instead of despairing about the injustice of the world, you can start planning new ways of income by looking for opportunities. This approach makes life much easier. Once you realize that you don't have to solve the problems of the world, you will feel incredibly relieved. Stoicism encourages you to accept the fact that not all things are under your control, and that's okay. No one can control absolutely everything, but everyone can control themselves. Let's take another example. A drop in the price of a stock you invested in. The situation on the market does not depend on you, but you can control your reaction. Instead of selling assets in a panic, you can keep a cool head and act according to your long-term strategy. This is exactly the case when understanding the limits of your control helps you save both your finances and your nerves. The practical conclusion here is simple. Prepare yourself for the fact that there will always be unforeseen circumstances in life. Instead of worrying about what you can't change, focus on creating resources and plans that will help you stay afloat. For example, create an emergency fund. It may be a small amount, but it can give you confidence and peace of mind in a crisis. Another important aspect is to learn to accept the unpredictable. We often strive for stability, but life, like the financial world, is constantly changing. The Stoics taught us to see these changes not as an enemy, but as part of the natural order. And the more we adapt to this, the easier it will be for us to live in harmony with ourselves and the world. So, instead of wasting your energy fighting against what you can't control, it's better to focus on what you can control. This is where the key to financial freedom lies. The ability to distinguish between what you can control and what you cannot will not only help you become more relaxed, but will also create a solid foundation for a secure financial future. Lesson 3. Money is a tool, not a goal. Money is a tool, not a goal. This idea may seem obvious, but how often do we think about what exactly it means? The Stoics repeatedly emphasize that the things we have or the resources we possess are only means to achieve more important goals. And money, as one of these resources, should serve us, not become our masters. Many people mistakenly put money at the center of their lives, believing that it is the goal. They work day and night, forgetting about their families, ignoring their health, and leaving their dreams for later. As a result, even when they reach financial heights, they often remain emotionally exhausted, with broken relationships and a lost sense of happiness. The Stoics, however, offered a completely different approach. Money is nothing more than a tool. Like a hammer or a vacuum cleaner, it is designed to perform a specific function. Its purpose is to help us realize more meaningful goals in life, to provide for ourselves and our loved ones, to learn new things, to explore the world, or to do things that bring us joy. But when we turn money into an end in itself, we become its slaves. A practical understanding of this concept can be seen in an example. Imagine a person who wants to accumulate a significant amount of money in an account, thinking that it will make him happy. He or she works 12 hours a day, avoiding weekends, giving up vacations, and communication with family. But does it make her happy? Usually no, because in the pursuit of money, she has forgotten why she needs it. Stoics would say, money should not control your time, it should free it. Their task is to help you live a full life, not to become the center of your existence. How can you apply this principle in your life? First of all, consider your budget as a way to invest in yourself. Instead of spending money on things that quickly lose their value, you should spend it on things that really matter. For example, studying can open up new career opportunities for you. Spending on health and physical activity will ensure you live a long and energetic life. And traveling enriches your experience and broadens your horizons, bringing you real pleasure. Another important point is to remember that money is no substitute for relationships, meaning in life, or inner peace. They can create comfortable conditions for achieving them, but they cannot give them to you on their own. Therefore, when you look at your income or plan your expenses, ask yourself, how can this money help me become a better version of myself? Does it work for me, or do I work for it? The Stoics urged us to avoid slavery, and this applies not only to external circumstances, but also to dependence on things like money. Remember that the true value of money is not in the amount of money, but in how you use it. The more you prioritize investing in yourself, your relationships, and your development, the more money becomes a tool for building a meaningful and happy life. Lesson 4. Accept failure as part of the journey. Failure is an integral part of any journey, and the financial world is no exception. The Stoics believe that instead of fearing or avoiding mistakes, we should accept them as a natural part of our experience. An obstacle in the way becomes a path, Marcus Aurelius wrote, and this principle works perfectly in the financial sector. There are times in everyone's life when things don't go as planned. Bad investments, debt, unplanned expenses, or even losing your job can seem catastrophic. But instead of giving in to despair or blaming yourself, Stoics advise taking these situations as an opportunity to learn something new. After all, even painful experience is the best teacher. Let's look at an example. Imagine that you invested a significant amount of money in stocks that subsequently lost value. Your first reaction might be emotional. You might start to regret your decision, blame yourself for being imprudent, or even blame external circumstances. But will this help solve the problem? Stoics would say no. Instead, they would ask, what can I learn from this experience? How can I avoid making a similar mistake in the future? Failure is an opportunity to rethink your strategies. Maybe you didn't analyze the market enough before investing, or you should have diversified your assets to reduce your risks. Every mistake opens the door to improvement. Financial failures also help you develop patience and resilience. The Stoics taught that most circumstances in life are beyond our control, but we can always control our reaction to them. Instead of despairing about debt or unplanned expenses, you can focus on finding ways to solve them. Sometimes you just need to accept the situation as it is and start acting within your realistic capabilities. Accepting failure also teaches us flexibility. The financial market, like life, is always changing. What worked yesterday may not work today. Your ability to adapt to new circumstances and revise your strategies is the key to long-term success. The practical approach to financial failure is simple. After each mistake, stop and ask yourself a few questions. What went wrong? Why did it happen? What can you do differently in the future? Draw conclusions and turn each failure into a lesson. For example, if you have accumulated debts due to impulsive purchases, make a clear budget next time and stick to it. If you lost money on a bad deal, take the time to analyze the risks in more depth in the future. It's also important to remember that failures are not a sign of your inability. They are part of growth. Successful people are not those who never make mistakes, but those who know how to learn from their mistakes. Sometimes losses are even necessary to remind us how important it is to be cautious and reasonable with our resources. In finance, as in life, progress is rarely linear. But it is through accepting failure and learning from it that you can gradually build your financial future. Stoics would say, instead of avoiding difficulties, learn to use them for your own development. And this approach is true financial wisdom. Lesson 5. Happiness does not lie in riches, but in virtue. Happiness does not lie in wealth, but in virtue. This idea, expressed by Seneca, sounds like a challenge to the modern world. where wealth is often considered a measure of success. But the Stoics were convinced true happiness is not in the amount of money or possessions, but in the way you live and the values you put in the first place. The Stoics believed that the highest form of wealth was to live by virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and moderation. For them, inner peace and moral integrity were more important than any material achievements. While the world may be inclined to judge people by the number of zeros in their bank account, the Stoics urged us to look deeper into our inner selves and ask ourselves, am I living the life I want to live? Are my actions in line with my values? Let's look at this through the prism of modern life. Many people spend years, sometimes decades, in pursuit of wealth. They work nonstop, accumulate wealth, buy expensive cars, houses, or jewelry. But when they reach their financial peak, they often feel empty. After all, money, despite its usefulness, cannot buy love, friendship, or self-esteem. On the contrary, people who live in harmony with their principles, even if their income is low, often radiate peace and satisfaction. Their lives have meaning because they act in accordance with their values and priorities. Such inner harmony brings more happiness than any wealth. Imagine that you have a choice. Either earn a large sum of money, but you will have to violate your moral principles, or stay true to yourself by earning less. Stoics would definitely choose the second option. After all, nothing material can compensate for the loss of honesty or respect for oneself. So how do you apply this lesson to your financial life? The first step is to define your life values. What is really important to you? Family health, justice, wisdom? Make a list and see if your financial goals are in line with these principles. If not, you may need to rethink your priorities. For example, if one of your values is helping others, think about how your money can support that. You may want to invest in charity or support your local community. If your value is health, make sure you don't skimp on your own well-being. Also, remember that wealth is not just about money. It is the time you spend with your family. It is an opportunity to learn and grow. It's your friendships, your reputation, your restful sleep, and your sense of meaning in life. Money is just one of the resources, and you shouldn't make it the center of your existence. To avoid the trap of pursuing material wealth, ask yourself regularly, is what I'm doing aligned with my values? Do my financial goals help me become a better person? If the answer is no, it may be time to reconsider your approach. The Stoics left us with a valuable lesson. True wealth is not what you have, but who you are. It is your ability to live with integrity, act wisely, and remain true to yourself despite external pressures. And this approach, oddly enough, is the shortest path to true happiness. The conclusion to this video will be the logical conclusion of our conversation about Stoicism and financial freedom. Financial independence is not just about how much money you have in your account. It's about your mindset, your principles, and your ability to manage your life in a way that brings you inner peace and harmony. We've looked at 5 important lessons from Stoicism that can change your approach to finance and make money your tool, not your goal. These are the ability to control our desires, distinguish between what is in our power, perceive money as a tool, accept failure, and finally, find happiness not in wealth, but in virtue. All these principles are the key to not being a slave to the financial race, but to becoming the master of your life. Now I want to turn to you. Write in the comments which of these lessons resonated with you the most. Maybe it's the ability to accept failure, or the realization that money is just a tool. Share your thoughts. Your answers may inspire others. And, of course, if you like this video and want to learn more about Stoicism, philosophy, and practical advice for everyday life, subscribe to the channel. Together, we will discover new ideas that help you live a conscious and happy life. Remember, money does not determine your value, but your actions and principles can determine how you manage it. Thank you for spending this time with me. See you soon.